The day I died, the entire internet hailed me as a hero. The major news outlets ran stories on me, and the beautiful girl I sacrificed my life to save insisted on acting as my widow, dedicating herself to my family. But the reality was simple. I jumped into a river to save someone, and I had died in the water. Not long after I died, my mother followed me, but I didn't vanish. Instead, I became a spirit, drifting in the air, forced to watch it all. I watched my mother cry until she went blind. I watched my grandfather's hair turn white overnight, the light vanishing from his eyes. I watched my father force a smile at my funeral, only to fall into total silence at my mother's. I regretted it. I shouldn't have saved her. If I could do it all over again, I would stand on the sidelines and watch. Suddenly, a white light flashed, and a system interface appeared before me. Do you regret? Without hesitation, I selected yes. That girl thrashing in the water? That was the wife I didn't live to enjoy in this life. Save her? No way in hell. It was a weekend, and the early morning mist clung to Riverside Park in Chicago. My name is Mason Clark. I had just started my job as an English teacher at Riverside High, full of anticipation for the future. Morning runs were my unshakable habit. The crisp air cleared my head. But today, the park felt wrong. A large crowd had gathered by the riverbank, their chatter drowning out the birds. She's still thrashing. She won't last long, will she? Who dares to go down there? That water looks freezing. I squeezed through the crowd, my chest tightening. A girl was bobbing up and down in the icy river, her arms waving wildly, already 30 feet from the shore. She was choking on water, her struggles growing weaker. She was going to sink. A guy in blue work coveralls, a construction worker, was holding an orange life ring, throwing it toward the girl over and over. Grab it, miss, he screamed, his voice hoarse. But the girl was either too terrified or in shock. She didn't cooperate. The life ring landed near her hand several times, but she acted like she didn't see it, just futilely slapping the water. The situation was critical. I had just graduated, my blood running hot with youth. She looked about my age. A vibrant life. Was she just going to vanish right in front of all these people? I couldn't wait anymore. I threw my phone on the grass, didn't even take off my jacket, and dove straight into the water. The icy river instantly enveloped me, the bone-chilling cold making me shudder. But I ignored it, swimming desperately toward the girl. I approached her from behind, intending to use the standard rescue hold to keep her calm. But the terror of death had stripped her of reason. She sensed death, then felt someone near. Like clutching at a straw, she turned maniacally and wrapped her limbs around me, locking on tight. Don't be scared. I've got you, I yelled, trying to calm her. Her response was a frantic struggle. Her hands clawed wildly, fingernails tearing across my face, leaving a burning trail of pain. Worse, she put her entire weight on me, her flailing hands pushing my head underwater. I choked on mouthfuls of water, cold and fishy. The worker on the shore was still shouting, throwing the life ring again. Using my last ounce of strength, I broke free from her death grip and managed to force the life ring over her head. But the moment I relaxed, she panicked, flailing her arm and knocking away the second life ring I had intended for myself. My energy was gone. A sharp pain shot through my legs, cramps. The cold rushed from the soles of my feet to the top of my skull. My body felt like lead. My consciousness blurred, and despair took over. The last thing I saw was the worker on the shore stripping off his clothes and jumping in. But he was too far away. Too late. My body sank uncontrollably. The river filled my nose and mouth, and the last light vanished from my eyes. It's over. I am dying. That was my final thought. I just wanted to save someone. Why did it end like this? I died, but I didn't completely disappear. When I regained consciousness, I found myself hovering over the river, my body weightless like a cloud of air. I could hear the crowd talking, but they couldn't see or hear me. I learned the worker's name was Leo Miller, and the girl I saved was named Nora Young. Looking down, I saw rescue workers in uniforms using long poles to drag the river. Before long, they pulled up a pale body with purple lips, motionless. That was me. I floated over trying to touch myself, but my hand passed right through. I was a ghost. The realization made me dizzy with absurdity. My corpse was lifted onto the bank. A paramedic checked it for a long time before finally shaking his head at a police officer. I was dead, officially certified. I heard a bitter laugh echo from the depths of my soul. I was already a ghost. How could I not be dead? Sirens wailed in the distance, getting louder. A police cruiser and a private sedan screeched to a halt almost simultaneously. My parents were here. My mom, Eleanor Clark, stumbled out of the car, her legs giving way immediately. My dad, Robert Bob Clark, caught her. When she saw the body covered by a white sheet, she broke free from my dad like a mad woman and threw herself forward. "No, it's not him. It's not my son," she muttered, her trembling hands lifting the sheet. When she saw my bloodless face, a sound that didn't seem human tore from her throat. "My baby!" It was a heart-rending scream. She collapsed beside my body, sobbing until she nearly stopped breathing. My spirit cried too, cold, temperatureless tears. I rushed over, trying to hug my mom, trying to tell her I was there. "Mom, I'm right here. Don't cry." But my arms passed through her body again and again. She couldn't hear me. This pain, seeing them, touching nothing, screaming into the void, was more desperate than drowning. Even my dad, the man who was as sturdy as a mountain in my eyes, stood with red-rimmed eyes, lips pressed into a thin line. He was holding on by a thread, moving to support my fainting mother. "El, stay calm." His voice was rough, like gravel grinding in his throat. That sound cut me like a knife. I followed as my body was loaded into the ambulance. My mom had passed out in my dad's arms. My dad, a man who had never shed a tear in front of us, turned his back for a split second. His broad shoulders shook violently. Just once. But I saw it. The doors closed, separating me and my parents into two different worlds. I floated outside, looking at their devastated faces through the window. For the first time, a thought sprouted clearly in my mind. I died saving a stranger, and my death brought apocalyptic pain to the people I loved most. Did I make a mistake? The seed of regret broke through the soil at that moment. My body was transported back to our old family home in rural Illinois. The yard I grew up in was now draped in white, heavy with grief. They set up a memorial in the living room. My black and white graduation photo was enlarged and placed in the center. In the photo, I was smiling brightly, a blinding contrast to the cold body in the casket. Police came to take statements. Reporters swarmed in, taking photos of our modest house and grieving relatives, their camera flashes annoying and intrusive. In the midst of this chaos, a girl walked in, supported by a middle-aged woman. It was her, the girl I saved, Nora Young. Her face was ashen, her lips colorless, her eyes staring hollowly at my memorial. When she saw my parents, her body trembled. Then, without warning, she collapsed to her knees with a heavy thud. She bent forward, burying her face in the floorboards, sobbing uncontrollably. "Mr. and Mrs. Clark, I'm so sorry." Her voice was hoarse with despair. "I killed your son." She raised a hand and slapped herself hard across the face, the crisp sound silencing the entire yard. "I want to die. I didn't mean to hurt him." She screamed, tears falling like broken beads. I floated in midair, looking at this girl who was my age. My feelings were complicated. Did I hate her? She caused my death. But seeing her like this, I couldn't bring myself to hate her. My dad walked over, his voice choking as he tried to help her up. "Child, it's not your fault. Get up. The floor is cold. My son, he did it voluntarily." My dad's words were like a dull knife sawing at my heart. My good father, his son was dead, and he was comforting the killer. Nora refused to get up. Through her sobs, she told her story. 2 days before I died, it was her mother's birthday. Like me, she had just graduated college, got a good job, and was making money. She had happily driven her parents to the city for a celebratory dinner. On the way, swerving to avoid a kid who ran into the road, she lost control and hit the guardrail. Her parents died instantly. Her mother, in the passenger seat, had thrown her body over Nora to shield her. In an instant, she became an orphan. The immense grief and guilt drove her to the river. She wanted to join her parents. A sinner who killed her own parents doesn't deserve to live. I didn't want to kill anyone else. Why wasn't it me? She cried as if her insides were breaking. My mom, hearing this, walked over and hugged her. 3 people who had lost their loved ones wept together in a huddle. The scene was absurd and desolate. After crying for a long time, Nora lifted her tear-stained face, her eyes holding a desperate determination. "Mr. and Mrs. Clark, from now on, I am your daughter-in-law. I will take care of you until the end. He gave me this life, so now I will live it for you." Her aunt, Susan, wiped her tears and pulled out a framed certificate from behind her back. It was a formal commendation. On the velvet backing, gold letters read, "For heroism and selfless sacrifice." This glaring award was handed to my father. The reporters immediately crowded in, flashes going off like strobe lights. A father who lost his son, holding the glory his son exchanged his life for, standing next to the killer, kneeling and swearing filial piety. Watching this, I felt an indescribable nausea. What was this? Good? Bad? The wake began. Sad jazz music played softly from a speaker in the yard. Friends and family arrived to pay respects. My mom fainted several times in front of my casket and had to be carried to the back room. When she woke up, she would rush back out, slapping the cold lid of the coffin, screaming my name. Mason, let Mom see you one more time. My baby, how am I supposed to live? Every cry was a sledgehammer smashing my soul into pieces. I wanted so badly to tell her I was right there, but I could do nothing. In the corner of the yard, my grandfather, Joseph Grandpa Joe Clark, sat in his wheelchair. He didn't cry or shout. He just stared at the wooden box, motionless as a statue. Since I could remember, Grandpa Joe was a jolly old man, always patting my head and saying I was the pride of the Clark family. Now his silence was terrifying. It was as if his soul had been extracted. My Uncle Phil, my mom's brother and a musician, walked over to comfort him. Dad, don't be too sad. You gotta let go. Mason, he's on the news. He's a hero. Uncle Phil's words felt so out of place, so pale. Grandpa slowly waved his hand, his voice raspy. I'm Fine. I can let go. He paused, then said, you go on. You still have to play the send-off for my grandson. The more he said he could let go, the more I felt the light in his eyes completely extinguish. It was a dead silence, more heartbreaking than wailing. I, the grandson he pinned his hopes on, had forced him into the unnatural agony of the old burying the young. Hero? I didn't want to be a hero. I just wanted to be the grandson who played chess with him and made him laugh. Nora noticed Grandpa's strange demeanor. She left my parents and slowly walked to him, kneeling down. She looked up at him, tears flowing again. Grandpa, I'm sorry. It's my fault. Hit me, scold me. A single old tear finally rolled from Grandpa's cloudy eye. He didn't hit her. He didn't scold her. Instead, he squeezed out a smile uglier than crying. He reached out with a trembling hand covered in liver spots and pulled Nora into a hug, patting her back gently like he used to do for me. It's okay, child. I don't blame you. Good child, don't cry. Watching my white-haired grandfather use his last bit of strength to comfort another grieving soul while enduring the loss of his grandson, my spirit couldn't take it anymore. I slapped my own void-like face hard, feeling no pain. A regret like never before occupied my entire soul. I shouldn't have saved her. I shouldn't have let my dearest grandfather endure this bone-scraping pain. If I could do it again, I would never jump into that river. The reception was simple, held right there in the yard. Neighbors and relatives filled the tables, the noise temporarily driving away the deathly atmosphere. My dad, Bob, was acting strangely normal. He held a drink, going table to table, thanking people for coming. He even wore that familiar, honest smile of his. Uncle Ted, eat up. Aunt May, thanks for all the help. It wasn't until the very end, sitting at a mostly empty table, that he started shoveling food into his mouth and drinking heavily. As if today wasn't his son's funeral, but just a regular party. I floated beside him. I had never looked at my father this closely. Watching his forced smile, I felt a ridiculous sense of relief. Dad was holding up. As long as he didn't fall, the family had hope. I was more worried about Mom. She hadn't eaten or drunk anything for days, living off 4 fluids. As long as Dad stood tall, he could hold up Mom in this broken home. The guests left. The noisy yard instantly became empty and silent, leaving only dirty plates. My mom was helped into the bedroom by some aunts. My dad stayed in the yard, cleaning up the last of the mess. When everything was done, Dad disappeared. My spirit wandered the empty house looking for him. Not in the kitchen, not in the living room, not in the bedroom. Finally, I found him behind the garage, in a dark corner where we kept the gardening tools. The man who always stood straight was now curled up, crouching in the corner. His head was pressed against the cold siding, a cigarette in one hand, the cherry glowing and fading in the dark. His other hand was clamped tight over his face. His shoulders were shaking violently. Suppressed, tiny whimpers were leaking through his fingers. I froze. This was the first time in my life I had ever seen my father cry. No wailing, no beating his chest. Just this silent, crushed collapse in a dark corner. It stabbed through my soul sharper than any blade. He wasn't numb. He just hid all the pain where no one could see, licking his wounds alone. He was the pillar of the family. He couldn't fall. So he only dared to take off the mask when no one was watching. The back door creaked open. My mom, eyes swollen, walked out. She looked at the yard and whispered, "Bob, there's some fish left. Take it to Aunt May's so it doesn't spoil." The crying in the corner stopped instantly. My dad immediately stubbed out the cigarette, grinding it into the dirt with his boot. When he stood up, his back was straight again, his face calm, though his voice was rough. Okay, go rest. I'll go. He picked up the bag of fish and walked heavily out the gate. Watching his retreating back, my soul was bathed in tears again. My mother's health collapsed anyway. Less than 2 weeks after the funeral, my parents sold the condo in the city, the one they had scraped money together to help buy when I graduated. In my dad's words, it's too empty. Without Mason, there's no life in it. No one to make noise. They moved back to the countryside permanently. Their spirits seemed to be sucked out. They aged 10 years overnight. Nora kept her promise. She didn't return to her own home, but stayed in the country with my parents. She did laundry, cooked, cleaned, taking care of them with clumsy dedication, trying to fulfill the duty of a daughter-in-law. Watching her busy figure in the yard, I thought for the first time that maybe saving her wasn't entirely wrong. She was accompanying my parents in my place. But some wounds cannot be healed by company. My mom got worse day by day. She stopped eating, couldn't sleep, and would sit in my old room for hours, staring at my empty bed. Soon, she fell ill. First a cold, then pneumonia, and finally, her heart gave out. The doctor said it was broken heart syndrome. Grief and stress had destroyed her will to live. Her body was hollowed out. The oil was dry, the lamp was fading. I followed the screaming ambulance to the hospital again. This time, lying in the bed was my mother. I floated outside the ICU, looking through the thick glass. The woman who used to be healthy and full of laughter was now covered in tubes, hooked to a ventilator, dying. On the monitor, the line representing her heartbeat was so weak it looked like it would flatten at any second. My dad was still staying strong, handling everything, running around for paperwork, bills, talking to doctors. But his hunch was deeper, his steps unsteady. Nora was beside him, crying until she nearly fainted. She grabbed my dad's arm, repeating over and over, "Dad, I am sorry. I caused this. If it wasn't for me." My dad patted her hand, his lips moving, but no sound came out. I followed a dazed Nora to the stairwell of the hospital. She squatted on the floor, hugging her knees, burying her head in her arms, sobbing in despair. "I just want to die. I just want to be with my parents. I never wanted to hurt more people. I'm a curse." I wanted so badly to comfort her, to tell her it wasn't her fault. But I was just a ghost. I could do nothing. I could only watch. Watching my mother gasping for her last breath. Watching my father exhausted and broken. Watching Nora crumbling in guilt. My soul felt a torture like never before. I knew Mom didn't have much time. And the root of all this tragedy was my decision to be a hero. This realization was the final straw, crushing my last bit of self-comfort into dust. I was wrong. I was completely, utterly wrong. My mom didn't make it. Less than 2 months after I died, she left too. The familiar country yard was draped in white again. This time, the photo in the center was my mother's. She was smiling gently in the picture. I had pathetically prayed that after Mom died, she would become a spirit and keep me company. That way, I wouldn't be alone. But no, until her funeral started, I never saw her ghost. This sad world still had only one lonely wandering spirit, witnessing the second funeral of a loved one. Uncle Phil was playing the trumpet for the send-off this time. This man, usually a jokester, now had a red face, cheeks puffed out. But the notes coming from the trumpet were broken, off-key. Tears streamed down his face, mixing with spit, making the mournful music choke and tremble. I understood. He was using this way to send off his beloved sister. That broken, off-key melody was more heartbreaking than any masterpiece. My dad was the same as last time, methodically handling the guests, the arrangements. But he had fallen into a more terrifying silence. Like a dried-up well, no ripples left. The forced determination in his eyes was gone, replaced by endless emptiness and numbness. After the reception, everyone left. My dad, once again, sat in that corner. He lit a cigarette. He smoked it puff by puff, letting the smoke blur his weathered face. But this time, Mom wouldn't walk out of the house to ask him to deliver fish or tell him to smoke less. The empty yard had only him and a lonely ghost. The home was gone. My gaze fell on the wall of the living room. That framed certificate, heroism and selfless sacrifice, was still hanging there. In the dim light, the gold letters gleamed coldly, red backing looking like blood. It stung my eyes. I finally understood. My heroic act didn't bring glory. It brought the destruction of my family. I traded my life and my mother's life for a ridiculous piece of paper and a girl kneeling in my house to atone for her sins. This exchange was a total loss. Regret transformed from a fiery emotion into a cold reality, solidifying in the depths of my soul, never to dissolve. It was late at night. The world was quiet. only the wind howling through the yard like it was weeping for this broken family. My dad sat in the corner for a long time. Only after finishing a whole pack of cigarettes did he drag his exhausted body back to the bedroom that no longer had a wife. I floated in the empty living room. Moonlight spilled through the window, landing right on that certificate. The gold letters mocked me ruthlessly. I reached out my void hand, trying again and again to touch it, to tear it off the wall, to shred it. This banner of honor was the evidence of my family's destruction, the proof of my stupidity. I wish I hadn't saved her. I wish I hadn't gone for a run that day. If I could just do it again. I don't want this damn award. I don't want to save anyone. This time, I'll be a bystander. I just want my family. I just want my mom and dad to live. My voice echoed in the empty room, filled with defiance. As soon as the words left my mouth, a blinding white light appeared out of nowhere, illuminating the entire room. A cold, mechanical voice rang out in the depths of my soul. System detects strong regret from host. System initiated, providing one life decision opportunity. Immediately, a semi-transparent screen unfolded before me. On the screen was a single line of text. Regarding your death caused by saving a life and the subsequent series of tragedies, do you regret it? Below were two glowing options. Option 1. No regret. A hero's death is glorious. You will have your memory wiped and be reincarnated into a life of wealth and health. Option 2. Regret. Fix the regrets. Reshape life. You will retain all memories and restart, returning to the critical event node that caused your death. My soul trembled violently. Reincarnation? Wealth? That wasn't my family. Those were my parents. Even if you made me an emperor, it wouldn't bring back my ordinary, laughter-filled home. I didn't want a rich next life. I wanted this life. I wanted my mom and dad. I wanted my uncle who bickered with me. I wanted my grandpa who called me his pride. I didn't hesitate. I used all my will to slam against that option. Regret? I choose regret. The moment I made the choice, the white light exploded, instantly swallowing everything. Coming through. Make way. What are you all standing around for? Call 911. The familiar noise, the familiar river wind, the damp moisture hitting my face. I snapped my eyes open and found myself standing in the crowd at Riverside Park, wearing my gray running sweats. I was back. I looked down at my hands. They were real warm, no longer a ghostly void. I was reborn. I really came back. Ecstasy washed over me, but before I could celebrate, the heart-shredding memories of my past life flooded in. Mom screaming, Grandpa's dead eyes, Dad collapsing in the corner. Scene after scene, clear as yesterday. I jerked my head up and looked at the river. It was still that girl, Nora Young, bobbing and struggling in the water, drifting further away. On the shore, the worker, Leo Miller, was holding the life ring, anxiously trying to throw it. Everything was exactly the same as before. The tragedy was about to replay. Intense fear gripped my heart. My legs felt like they were filled with lead, unable to move. A cold voice screamed in my brain, "Don't go. It's none of your business. Stand back. You chose this. Did you forget how your mom died? Did you forget how your family was destroyed? Yes, don't save her." I stared at Nora in the water, watching her choke on more water, her struggles weakening. Seconds ticked by, a war raging inside me. Did she deserve to die? No, she was just a poor soul played by fate, like me. But did I deserve to die? Did my mom deserve to die? No. Just as I hesitated, I saw Leo on the shore, sweating with anxiety. He threw the life ring on the ground, tore off his jacket, and looked like he was about to jump in, just like I did in my past life. No, I couldn't watch another family shatter because of this tragedy. Just as Leo put one foot over the railing, I bolted from the crowd and grabbed his arm in a vice grip. "Hey, don't do it," I roared. Leo looked back, seeing me, stomping his foot in frustration. "Let go, kid. She's gonna drown. If you go down like that, you're both dead." My brain was spinning at max speed. The lesson I bought with my life transformed into extreme calm and clarity. I pointed at Nora in the water and spoke fast. "She's in shock. If you go down, she'll strangle you. Tie the rope of that life ring to the railing first. Then put the ring on yourself before you jump. I'm going to the maintenance shed to get more gear." My voice wasn't loud, but it carried undeniable authority. Leo froze for a second, then reacted, immediately doing as I said. I watched him start tying the rope and let out a long breath. I conquered my demons. This time, I wasn't a fool throwing my life away on hot blood. I sprinted toward the park maintenance shed at top speed. Relying on fuzzy memories from my past life, I kicked open the unlocked door. Sure enough, In the corner sat 2 dusty life preservers and a coil of heavy rope. I grabbed them and ran back, my lungs burning, but my mind crystal clear. When I got back to the riverbank, Leo was already in the water. He had a firm grip on Nora, who was flailing and losing consciousness, but handling her alone was proving difficult. Now, catch! I threw one of the life rings, attached to a rope, out to him with all my strength. At the same time, I tied the other rope to the railing with 2 dead knots and slipped the ring over my own head. Fully prepared, I shouted to the stunned crowd, "Everyone grab the ropes!" Then I jumped. The river was still bone-chilling, but this time I felt solid. Leo and I, one on each side, sandwiched the nearly unconscious Nora between us. We slipped the extra life ring over her. Double insurance. Pull! I yelled to the shore. Several men and good Samaritans on the bank snapped out of it, working together to haul in the 3 ropes. The rescue was unbelievably easy. We barely used any energy before we were dragged to the bank. Once on land, Leo and I were shivering uncontrollably, teeth chattering, but we were alive. Nora was laid flat on the grass, and someone who knew CPR immediately started clearing her airway. Leo patted my shoulder, still shaken, his lips white. "Brother, thanks to you. Seriously, if you hadn't stopped me, I might have died down there." I looked at him, remembering the man who had jumped in too late to save me in my past life, and felt a wave of emotion. I smiled. "It's nothing." I felt a lightness I had never known before. Soon, the ambulance and police arrived. Nora was loaded up. She had regained weak breathing. Leo and I gave statements. This time, there were no heart-wrenching screams from parents, no cold corpse, just a successful rescue with a few scares. The incident was filmed by the crowd and uploaded online. Leo and I went from tragic heroes to smart heroes, making the local headlines. Back at school, the principal commended me in front of the whole assembly. I went from an invisible new teacher to a campus celebrity. My life had completely changed course. The tragedy of the past was now a comedy, bringing unexpected glory. That night at home, Mom made my favorite rib soup. Dad cracked open a bottle of his prized whiskey to share a drink with me. Seeing their proud smiles, my eyes grew wet. This was the life I wanted. This was the meaning of my rebirth. I saved Nora's life, but I knew this was just step 1. My past memories told me that the pain of losing her parents and her massive guilt would drive her to the edge again. For the next week, I made sure my morning run went past that specific spot on the river every day. Finally, on another weekend morning, at the same spot, I saw that familiar, thin silhouette. Nora stood alone by the railing, staring hollowly at the water, the wind whipping her hair. She radiated death. She was back. She slowly lifted a leg to climb over the rail. I didn't think. I moved like a linebacker, sprinting from behind. Just as she was tipping over, I grabbed her around the waist and hauled her back from the edge of death with everything I had. "Let me go." Nora struggled wildly in my arms, screaming like a wounded animal. "Why did you save me? My parents are gone. What's the point of living?" She couldn't break free, so she turned and bit down hard on my arm. Pain shot through me, making me wince, but I didn't let go. Gritting my teeth against the pain, I roared at her, "You jump down there. Nobody's saving you this time. If I go in again, we both die." My words seemed to stun her for a second, followed by deeper despair. "Then don't save me. Let me die. Please," she begged, sobbing. Looking at her despair, I remembered the girl kneeling in my living room, swearing to take care of my parents, the girl who served them until the end. My heart softened instantly. The pain in my arm didn't matter anymore. I relaxed my jaw and lowered my voice, speaking with a gentleness that surprised even me. "You are not alone. If you jump, your parents really have nothing left. Did you forget how your mom instinctively protected you in the crash? Did you forget how much she loved you? They want you to live." These were details I had heard from her Aunt Susan's weeping in my past life. Nora stopped struggling. She stared at me, blankly, wondering how a stranger knew this. I pressed on. "You say you have no family? Then I'll be your family. Call me whatever you want, brother, uncle, whatever. Just live. That's the only way your mom's death has meaning. That's the only way someone visits their graves." Nora was stunned. She probably thought I had heard about her from her aunt. The defensiveness and madness in her eyes faded, replaced by endless grievance and sorrow. She stopped fighting, turned around, hugged me, this stranger, and finally let out a true, wailing cry. It was the cry of losing loved ones, of deep guilt, and of finally being understood. Clumsily, mimicking my grandfather, I gently patted her back. "It's okay. Let out. There's nothing you can't get past. If you die, your parents would be the ones mad at you. They'd be heartbroken. Besides, don't you have an aunt? If you go, she's really alone. At least introduce her to a boyfriend before you check out, right? Nora and I hugging and crying quickly attracted attention. A lady in a floral jacket, clearly a busybody, walked over. Seeing the scene, she immediately got the wrong idea. She snapped her fan shut and pointed at my nose. Hey, young man, look at this. Such a pretty girl, crying her eyes out. Can't you talk it out? Why fight? A girlfriend is for cherishing, not for making cry. You hear me? The sudden misunderstanding made me awkward. But Nora, buried in my chest, let out a pft of laughter. Tears still hung on her lashes, but a smile broke through like a rainbow after rain. I decided to roll with it. I held Nora's shoulders and nodded sincerely at the lady. Ma'am, you're absolutely right. It's my fault. I'm taking her to get some good food, right now, to apologize. I grabbed Nora's hand to leave. The lady beamed, grabbing Nora's other hand and slapping it firmly into my palm. That's the way. Couples fight, couples make up. Don't take it to heart, honey. Nora's face turned beet red. She lowered her head, afraid to look at me or the lady. I dragged her away quickly under the crowd's benevolent gaze. We walked side by side along the park path, silence stretching between us, but an awkward, subtle chemistry was growing. To break the ice, I introduced myself. So, I'm Mason Clark, English teacher at Riverside High. My students are half demons, half angels. They give me a headache. I'm worried about leaving you alone. I'll drive you to your aunt's place. Nora looked down and whispered, Oh, Riverside High. Worried? There's nothing to worry about. But, if you want to drive me, go ahead. Try to lighten the mood, I joked. Listen to me, find her aunt a boyfriend first. I see your aunt isn't much older than me. Maybe she'd consider me. Keep dreaming. My aunt definitely wouldn't like you. We bantered back and forth. In her voice, I heard a trace of hope and light that hadn't been there before. I didn't expect that 6 months later, that light would become very real. Riverside High got a beautiful new teacher. Her name was Nora Young. When I saw that familiar figure at the principal's office door, I froze. She saw me too and gave a shy smile. Even crazier, the school assigned her as the co-teacher for my homeroom class. From that day on, we were colleagues. At school, I looked out for her like a big brother. She was nervous about her first open observation class, so I helped her rehearse it over and over. She struggled with the troublemakers, so I taught her how to balance kindness with authority. We lesson planned together, sat in meetings together, and handled student drama together. Amidst the daily grind and playful bickering, the temperature rose. We went from colleagues to friends, and from friends to lovers. Everything flowed like water. A year later, urged on by my parents, I proposed. She looked at me, crying and laughing, and nodded her head vigorously. Our wedding was lively. Sitting in the front row were my parents, grinning ear to ear, and her Aunt Susan, looking equally relieved and happy. The officiant announced, You may kiss the bride. I lifted her veil, looked at her blushing face, and kissed her gently. All the regrets of my past life were filled by this immense happiness. We were inseparable newlyweds. Life with Nora was sweeter than honey. My parents and her aunt were open-minded. They never pressured us about kids, just told us to enjoy our lives. 2 months after the wedding, I walked out of the bathroom drying my hair when a force shoved me onto the bed. Before I could react, Nora was straddling me. She smelled like shower gel, her wet hair draped over her shoulders, her eyes dancing with a mischievous, seductive light I'd never seen before. Mr. Clark, she whispered, her warm breath tickling my ear. You saved my life once. Don't I owe you a life in return? Her voice was soft and light, like a feather teasing my heart. My face flushed, but I tried to act cool. No ruse, no ruse. We're still young. Nora saw my hesitation and smirked, grabbing my chin like a total boss. No ruse? Where's Mr. Clark worried he can't get the job done? That shattered my male ego. This was war. I flipped over, pinning her beneath me, taking back control. My eyes locked onto hers, burning with intent. A man never says he can't. I lowered my head and kissed her deeply. We're settling this tonight. First try is all I need. Story complete.